I'm going to ask you to please allow me to do that. Okay, and then I'm going to get my screen sharing here going on. Perfect. Okay. All right, so first thing, I just want to let you guys know that, again, I love the chat feature, so I really want you guys to utilize that as much as possible throughout this. You know, if you have questions, I'll have a point in which I will let you know, go ahead and, you know, ask questions. And then we'll kind of get to them towards the end. But, you know, if we're all chatting pretty liberally, if I miss some questions, I'll try to scroll back and find them. But if you can kind of save them for the part when I'm like, hey, go ahead and put in your questions, that would be great. So if you need to write them down, go ahead and do that. If you don't have a pen and paper, I would probably recommend getting a hold of a couple of those things just so that you can take notes as we chat. So, okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here live. Thank you for watching on the replay. If you're watching on the replay, tonight we're going to talk about 3 steps to selling without feeling like you're annoying everyone. And the response to this class has been amazing, like way more than I thought it would be. And I think that really says a lot about, like, in general, how we feel about selling and what that brings up for us internally. And we just, in general, like as makers, as creatives, we have a really hard time just stepping forward and talking about ourselves and our work. And so I think it really bears its own discussion apart from today, but we'll stick to some of the more like practical aspects and kind of the how-to aspects of selling as we kind of get moving through here. So today we are going to cover 3 different steps. So we're going to work on changing your mindset, changing your focus, and changing your frequency. And I mean frequency in like an amount way, not like manifesting vibrations kind of way. I mean, I love woo, love it, but I'm not going to do a whole lot of that here. And obviously, of course, like I'd love for you to stick around until the end so that you have the opportunity to ask questions and have those answered. And so I'm going to leave time so that we can do that. But just know too, if you need to, you know, run out, that's totally okay. The replay will be available. Well, I'm going to try to do it pretty quickly. I'll try to do it tonight, but otherwise it'll be there for you tomorrow. Okie dokie. So first question, scale of 1 to 10, I would love to know, how uncomfortable does selling make you? And you can do this in the comments, just a quick number, because I think it would be really interesting to hear that before we really get digging in. And by selling, I mean like basically saying like, hey, come buy my stuff. 6s, we got some good 6s. 7, that's pretty decent. 8, 5, 8, 7. Awesome. Okay. We can work with these numbers. That's okay. 6 is still good. 5 is still good. That's the lowest one I've seen. That's still good. That's better than like 0 or 1. So we'll work on it. We'll see if we can try to boost up that number before the end of the night. So thing I'm going to let you know, you're not alone. Obviously, you can tell that you're not alone in worrying about whether or not you're making people feel uncomfortable, or like you're annoying people or making them feel uncomfortable, because everybody else feels that way too. So if you feel awkward, that's cool. I do too. I mean, I really do. I'm like sitting here very animatedly talking at a computer screen. It's a little bit awkward sometimes because, you know, when everybody else is completely silent, which you need to be, but it's just, you don't get that initial feedback. It's like, all right, this is a bit weird. And I'm sure that everybody in my house thinks I'm nuts. But that's okay. Don't really care. I feel uncomfortable, totally normal. I think that's just a natural human thing. And if you feel like you sound arrogant, I hear you. but I bet you don't. And we'll talk about that as well. Okay, so first things first, I'm Anastasia. Most of you, I think, know who I am, but I know not everybody does. So please allow me to introduce myself for just a quick second here, and then we'll dive into the meat of everything. I'm a creative business coach, primarily working with fiber artists, with makers, with creatives, well, we'll talk about that. But I'm South Dakota based. I live in the literal middle of nowhere. Literal. There are tumbleweeds. Like, we get tumbleweeds. It makes me laugh so hard every time I see one because it feels very movie-esque, but it's exactly what you would think of when you think of South Dakota. And then I'm also a former natural dyer. Had a yarn business for a while, for about 3 years, and closed up shop, realizing that I just kind of am obsessed with the marketing aspect, but not necessarily as much with the dyeing aspect. I am a wildlife rehabilitator in my free time. Haha, don't have any, but in the spring, usually in the summer, I am working with baby squirrels, sometimes bunnies. Primarily though, I am a bird person. So I'm really into birds, but I also specialize in them as far as wildlife rehabilitation goes. So if you have followed me or will follow me at some point on the internet, you will see birds, and I apologize if you hate them. Some people do. Okay, and then also too, so I have over 5 years of experience in the yarn and fiber industry, but a little bit more on a broader scale. I grew up on a farm. We had sheep growing up, and then I have done some of the other things that you would think of, like I'm a knitter, I'm a crocheter, I've gone to shearing school, I've taught, at fiber festivals, things like that. So I've done kind of a lot of the things, but it also lends itself to just being really helpful in helping you guys with your businesses, because I've been able to kind of see them from some different perspectives, not all of them, but for the most part, most of them. And then on a one-to-one basis, which is what I've primarily done in the past, I've worked with over 60 business owners in the last 16 months. We work on getting clear in their vision, in marketing plans, kind of building confidence, that kind of thing. And I know that a lot of you here tonight I've worked with before, and I love you, and I'm glad you're here. And if I haven't worked with you before, I still love you. Okay, so I have good news and I have bad news. The bad news is marketing is your job, unfortunately. So especially if you are the only person who is spearheading your business, you are the only one who is going to be able to run the marketing department. The good news, though, is that it doesn't have to suck. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be icky. It doesn't have to be gross. You don't have to feel like you're a used car salesman, because you're not that guy. You can actually market however you want to. There are plenty of ways to do it in a way that actually is like aligned with your values, that feels authentic, but still gets your point across and still brings people in. So as far as marketing in general goes, so the first thing I want to let you know is that technically you are already engaging in marketing, whether you actually know it or not. So marketing refers to the activities that you're participating in that actually promote the buying or selling of your product or service. So this in general means the actual creation of the product, the advertising of the product, the selling of the product, and the delivering of the product. All of those things come under the umbrella of marketing. The only one that we tend to kind of, well, not everybody does, but like for those of us where selling feels uncomfortable, we tend to then just kind of like push off the advertising a little bit more than others. So, you are already doing some of this on some level. And then in the event that you believe that you know nothing about marketing, so you can go ahead and stop yourself right there, because you do already know some things, and you know them because you're doing them. This is also known as selling yourself short, and we need to stop doing that because we have a lot of skills and we need to learn how to embrace those just in general in life. Okay, so let's get into step number 1 here. So the first part we're going to talk about is changing your mindset. And the funny thing here is that essentially, I believe that pretty much all of our issues around marketing ourselves and selling our stuff, they're actually going to be built around narratives that we and other people have been telling ourselves throughout all of time. So if this is something that I've been talking about a lot recently with a friend of mine, and we're talking about like, what are some of the generational beliefs that we've acquired from our parents, parents about, what a valid business is, what a valid degree is, what a valid type of education is, and then think about some of those gender beliefs as well. I know that the majority of us here are identifying as women, and so it's really interesting to think about, like, were you ever at any point told to be quiet? Were you ever at any point told to be good, whatever that means? Were you told to not step out of line? All of those things, it feels like there are some ways in which that stuff was left to the men, like the business stuff was left to the men, and the women didn't really deal with that. Luckily, times are changing, but it just takes a lot for us to kind of push aside those things that basically have been trickling down through the generations, and kind of what that means. So, okay. I apologize. We live right next to the jail, so you're probably gonna hear some sirens here. But okay, first thing that comes into the mindset is that we feel typically that it's a bad thing to be selling our stuff. It's a bad thing to like do the sales thing, right? Sales is gross. Sales is awkward. The sales part. I'm not talking about, hey, I put this picture up on Instagram and I've announced that it exists. That's not selling. Selling is saying, hey, I think you're going to love this because of XYZ. I am going to tell you now to come buy it here, this time, this date, come along. That's actually selling. But the thing is that, it's expected. If you think about it, you probably advertise pretty clearly in some format somewhere that you have a business, right? So whether that is on social media, if you have like it in your Instagram bio, that this is your business, that you are selling XYZ, or you have an Etsy shop, which basically just the fact that you have an Etsy shop identifies you as a business. If you talk about it on your website, if you say that you have things to sell at any point in time, at anywhere, right? So that is you saying, I have a business. So in that same vein, people expect to be sold to, right? And I think this is a big, big, big thing that needs to be talked about, just in the sense that, like, when people are saying, like, I feel like I'm being annoying, I feel like I'm being a show off. But the thing is that people are following you for a reason. They know that you have a business. You're not jumping out of the bushes and saying, hey guys, here's my stuff. It's, hey, this is very clearly laid out for you, and I would like you to buy it. And they know that, and they still follow you anyway. So they are going to expect you to come forward and say, hey, here's a new thing I have. I would like you to buy it. And that is totally okay. So it's just something to start really thinking about. Like, if you start to worry, okay, am I talking about it too much? Have I, am I making people feel awkward? Are they just going to be tired of hearing what I say? And it's like, you know what? It's a business. Like, you have to do the things that businesses do so that you can make money, because you need the money to continue the business. And the other part of this is that you're not forcing anybody to be here. When I first made this slide, like every single line here, I had the subtitle of "They aren't your people." But that's not even necessarily true here. So if somebody here is like, well, let's just say, like, again, you're not forcing anybody to be in any form of your spaces. You're not forcing them to follow you on social media. You are not forcing them to be subscribed to your newsletter. You are not forcing them to buy anything. These are all questions that you are asking people and offers that you are giving them. They have full and total free will to say no or walk away. But if they choose to say unfollow you on social media, let's say the worst case scenario happens. And that's what a lot of people worry about. Like, if I talk about it too much, my people are going to unfollow me. Okay. So if they unfollow you, it probably means that they just don't want to see what you have to offer. And that means they probably aren't your people. They probably weren't going to buy from you anyway. And a lot of times when we see those people go, I invite business owners to, basically thank them for that. Like, thank you for leaving, not actually, like, you don't actually go to them and say that, but in your head, like, okay, thank you for leaving, because the people that I want in my space and the people that you should want in yours are the ones that actually care about what you do. If they're unfollowing you, then they're not at that place where they care. Whether or not they ever come back and care in the future is kind of irrelevant. But at the moment, they're not for you. You're not for them. It's okay. It's a mutual breakup. Everybody's, conscious uncoupling. We're fine with it. And then if they choose to unsubscribe, let's say they unsubscribe to your newsletter. We get kind of hung up on this, right? Even I do. I had somebody unsubscribe today, and I kind of felt like, oh, well, that's slightly offensive, but the thing is that there's so many reasons why that happens. Even people, if there's somebody who things start to shift in their business, and this has happened where I follow somebody and then things kind of start to take a turn and don't feel like they're really relevant to me, then I'm going to unsubscribe, because it just doesn't resonate with me anymore. Like, I'm not their person. I'm not their person. And I'd rather save that space for somebody else, especially in a lot of inboxes where the people cost money, right? Like, the more subscribers you have, the more you're paying to have them. So I'd rather remove myself from that list and leave that space open for somebody else to come in and who is engaged and who is wanting that product or service. But also too, there are times that I unsubscribe even to people that I love. Even if I know them personally, I will unsubscribe because I have a clogged inbox. Like, I have a problem with this. Me personally, I've actually created a completely separate email address for newsletters to go into. So when those come in, they go specifically to that one. And then I kind of cherry pick through the ones that I get based on that, and then cherry pick even further to figure out exactly which ones I want to read. And that can change from time to time. So this is all in to say, like, don't take it personally, right? Like, don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. I'll say it a few times because I think it's really important that we remember that. Don't take it personally. And then the other thing is they can choose to ignore. You can throw something up a million times and somebody is going to choose not to buy or not to engage or not to sign up or not to whatever. And it just means they're not ready right now, right? Like, how many times did I talk about this class? An obnoxious amount of times, right? Like, an obnoxious amount, in my opinion. And, there were people that I saw that saw everything that I did. And I thought, oh, they would really like this, but they never signed up. So, okay, fine. Does that mean that they hate me and they hate what I do? No, it just means that they're not ready right now, or they don't feel like this is going to connect with them or resonate with them, or they don't have this issue. And that's okay. That's totally fine. We'll come at it from a different way at some other point. So a couple other mindset things that I want to kind of run through is, what if no one responds? Like, what if I put something out on social media, right? So this is specifically talking about maybe Instagram. And I know the majority of you are active on Instagram, so this feels like a valid example. But let's say that you put an Instagram post out and you feel like you have an amazing caption and the photo is beautiful, and you post at like the optimal time of day, and then you get nothing. So the most important thing to realize is that sales posts, like ones that specifically are saying, here I have a thing, and we'll talk about, like, you don't really say these things, right? But just in general, like, the gist of it is, here's a thing that I have, it is available to buy, here's where you can go and buy it, or here's when you can go and buy it. Those posts typically do terrible consistently across the board. It's not just you, it's everybody. Me too. I have that. It's awful. And you look at it and, you pay attention to your insights and you're going, oh God, my reach was bad, this and this, nobody's seeing it. But the thing is that, the warmest of your audience is going to see it. And just because nobody responds doesn't mean that doesn't convert. So even though I had some posts that did really, really poorly, especially when, like, we'll use this class as an example, right? But then people were still signing up. So obviously, like, there's something there. People still want it, but what are they going to say, right? Like, they're not going to get on there and be like, hurrah, I'm going to go buy this from you. I'm so excited. Sometimes people do that. Some people will go in and be like, I just bought it. It's amazing. And that's great. But it's just, don't take it too much to heart if they don't, because it's just not that engaging. Another example would be my podcast episodes. Whenever I have a podcast episode that comes out on Tuesday, I always post a graphic. And the graphics with text usually for me do worse than any other types of photos that I do. So I know every Tuesday that post is going to quote unquote bomb in the language of like Instagram land, right? But I know it doesn't matter, because the thing is that people listen to my podcast and they see that, and then it reminds them, oh, that's right, it's Tuesday, I'm going to go listen. So it doesn't stop people from engaging with my work. It just means that, what are they going to say? I'm so excited. Okay, that's fine. Some people do that, but we don't all need to comment, I'm so excited. So again, wouldn't worry too much about that. Next thought that typically crops up: what if people think I'm a show off? And this, sorry, here come the sirens again. This is one fear that comes up again and again and again and again with people that I work with. And this right here, this is a story that you're telling yourself, right? So this has nothing to do with anything really. I mean, like, all of this is going to be built on your beliefs around what a show off is. And then like the importance that you place on other people's opinions of you as a person. And I think it's really important to say that as much as we would love everyone to like us, the biggest thing here is that we don't necessarily need them to like us, right? That we don't necessarily need them to think that we're like amazing, upstanding, wonderful human beings, because we are not perfect. We are regular three-dimensional people with flaws and messy houses and like people who trip and fall and spill everything on somebody else. Like, this all happens to all of us, right? Or is that just me? It might just be me. But the big thing here is that, you know, a lot of these things that we're starting to tell us, like, what if they think I'm this? Okay, where does that thought come from? And that's not something that I can necessarily dive into, because I'm not your therapist. And I don't really delve in the work of therapy whatsoever. It's not my thing, but I would highly recommend getting one, especially if these are common thoughts that come up for you. Then working through those and what that means to you and how you can move beyond it is going to be so critical. It will help you be more effective in your business if you can work on that on a personal level as well. You know, I have a hard time with it personally. Like, there are times that I want to talk about things that I'm really excited about in my business. And I always preface it with, okay, I'm just going to brag for a second. And the thing is, with the people that I do this with, they don't need to hear the disclaimer. They don't need to hear like, I'm going to brag about myself, because they are supportive and they're happy to hear it. So those kinds of things are, again, very, very internal. But the other thing goes along with the fact that, like, you have a business, right? So if you are talking a lot about your stuff and acting like it's amazing, then that's great. I would rather buy from somebody who thinks that their product or their service is amazing than buy from somebody who's not very sure about that. Like, I want that product to be wonderful, and I want you to think it's wonderful because you're the one that I'm buying it from. So if the company doesn't believe in their product or doesn't behave as if they believe in their product, then that is something that you're communicating to your customer. So that is something that I would say there. Okay. So then the third one that I want to come into is, what if I come off as awkward or weird? And this kind of is like, LOL, join the club. So this is, again, it is a fear of like the perception that others have of us. Just because it's a fear, it is valid, right? So it's a valid fear. All of these things that we feel are valid feelings, and you're allowed to feel them, but it doesn't make them true. So again, these are internal beliefs that are at play. And I would again, encourage you to seek out a mental health professional to work through some of this stuff. But the other part of it is that sometimes awkward and weird is a strength that we don't lean into enough. I tend to be kind of awkward in some of the ways that I exhibit my humor. And yeah, it feels super, super weird to do it like on the other side of a screen and just kind of assuming everybody's laughing, hoping they're laughing, and they might not be. But it's also part of who I am, right? So if like the way that you are as a human being comes off in your marketing, in your messaging, in the way that you talk to your people, that's a good thing, right? Because we, at this point in consumer society, we really have this high expectation that we want to know so much about either the company, the business owner, especially with small businesses that we buy from. We want to know so much about them. And I halfway blame this on reality TV. But the fact that like people believe that they should be entitled to an inside look in our lives, we don't have to allow that. But there are times that I highly recommend, at least allowing your personality to come through, because that is the core of who you are. And it is such a good thing to bring forward so that other people can connect with you. Because a lot of times, like I'm super sarcastic, I'm super cynical. Not all of my clients are, but I know that there are a lot that are, or that do, or at least they think it's kind of funny, so that helps me connect with them, make jokes with them, and make things, I guess, I don't want to say like accessible, but in a way, sort of like, it's just kind of like brings us all down to the same level, right? Because it puts you in the category of, hey, hello, I am a human. Hey, hello, you are a human. We are human beings. We are not perfect. I'm not up on a pedestal just because I own this business. You are not beneath me just because you are buying from my business. We are equals. We are on the same playing field, right? And I think that's really important in a, business consumer relationship, especially when we are like the only person in our business. So again, if you feel awkward, if you feel weird, story, but also then like, is there something positive about that you could kind of spin that a little bit and think about, what is this weirdness? And like, is it actually endearing to somebody else? I talked about this a little bit in my live last week. I don't know if you guys remembered, but back in the day, I don't even know when this movie came out. The movie Garden State came out, and there was this whole concept around this type of character that that the main girl that Natalie Portman played was. And like there's lots of movies around that time that had a similar type of character, and they called it Manic Pixie Dream Girl. And so this girl was somebody who had like a lot of issues, but she was quirky and she was like a little bit goofy, and it made her really charming and really endearing. And I know that at that time, I remember because this was the age of MySpace. And as soon as those movies started to surface and us girls were like, oh, this is going to make guys like me, right? So there's that kind of thing in there that's a little bit, ugh. But then we all of a sudden are starting to like get to our MySpace profiles. And instead of like, I go to school here, I like these books, all of a sudden you're thinking of these really quirky things that you could say to make you stand out and make you seem like very interesting. And I think that there's something to kind of like leading into the quirks, right? Not to the point of like Manic Pixie Dream Girl, but it is a really like valid example of, those quirks can really come off as like a positive thing. Not saying anybody like needs to use them to get a man or a partner or anything, or customers, but it's helpful. It's helpful to be who you are with your customers so that they can feel connected to you and get to know you. All right, so we're going to move into changing your focus. This might be the most important part of this whole thing, I think. And really, it's because we need to start realizing that what we do, it's not about us, right? Like this whole business, yes, we do it for ourselves, right? We do it because it fulfills us. It gives us a creative outlet. It gives us income. All of those things are what I would call like your intrinsic why. So the why you do something for your personal selfish reasons, which are totally fine. Everybody has those. I have those. You have those. You need to have those. But why we do it for other people is completely different. What we are doing is we are filling a need. We're solving a problem. We are helping people feel the way they want to feel. We are reaffirming values for them. All of those things are things that we need to pinpoint and address when we talk about what we're selling and why we're selling it effectively. So thinking about your customer when you write anything, when you say anything around your product is key. You must do this. You must do this. And I guarantee you it will be a game changer. Because number one, humans, what is our very favorite thing in the world? Ourselves, right? We love ourselves. And that is a fact. It's not a bad thing. It's just who we are. I mean, it might be a bad thing, but we can all rest easy knowing that we all are this way, right? But thinking more along the lines of allowing yourself to kind of like, I don't want to say baby them, but really recognize them and what it is that they need from you. So for example, let's kind of run through a couple of these things here. So things that you can ask yourself when you're talking about stuff, right? So number one, what do they need help with? You know, even luxury items can help somebody. So those of you who are like, I sell yarn, nobody needs yarn. And you start realizing that, well, I mean, okay, so maybe nobody needs it as a basic necessity, but a lot of the things that we buy in life aren't basic necessities. You know, a lot of the things that we buy in life are maybe it's things that we buy with our expendable income. And you need to come from that place of why did we buy it? And what did it serve for us? And you can literally do this with any single item in your home that you buy, down to the most banal, mundane thing. My favorite example that I like to use is my phone case. And it kind of goes through all of these different steps. So how does somebody want to feel? Because so I'll go to the phone case in a second. So we make decisions based on emotions. That is just how our brain works. The decision-making part of our brain is also the part that controls emotion. And there is no language in that part of the brain. So there are no words to put to that. It's a literal feeling. So our rational brain then comes in and tries to put some words into it, but it takes a lot of work to do because emotions aren't always easily translated to words. And you know this too, like if you're in love with somebody, or you love your child, or you love your dog, or you love anything, like how do you put love into words without just like the word love, right? It's very difficult. But also too, like what values do they want to affirm? So I always like to ask the question, all right, so say somebody buys something from you, they buy your product or they buy your service. How do you want them to feel about themselves when they walk away? Like, what do you want them to believe about themselves? Because they also want to believe that about themselves, right? So if you know what that person wants to believe about themselves, you can help them do that by using that kind of language in your copy, which is like the text that you would have like on your website or on a caption or in your Instagram bio. All that stuff is considered copy. Okay, let's go back to the phone case. So I have a Pella case. It's like P-E-L-A, and the Pella case is a fully compostable phone case. So like I could take this off my phone when I'm done with it and throw it out in my backyard. I bury it a little bit. I have to bury it. I've tested it without burying it. It doesn't work. And it will completely disintegrate within 6 months. And so it just becomes part of the earth. So there's no like plastics or anything like that in there. It's really good for the environment. It serves a purpose, obviously, like it solves a problem. Like I don't want to drop my phone and break it because it costs a god awful amount for a cell phone these days. And phone companies don't want to give you like the $200 with a 2-year contract anymore. They really want to eke out every dollar. Side note, but beyond that, it does a couple other things too. So it reaffirms values for me. So what are some of the values that something like this would say, right? So something like this says, I care about the environment, right? So for me, that's relatively important, is that I try to find little ways in which I can actually do positive things for the environment in a way that works for me. Having a phone case that's fully compostable is something that I have control over. The fact that my recycling center doesn't accept glass is not something I have control over. You see, so it's a way for me to have control, to feel like I'm contributing to society, to feel like I'm contributing to like the environment and not contributing to climate change. So those things are really important to me. But then also, and I'm not saying that this is the case, so if you don't believe this way or you don't think this way, don't think I'm saying anything about you personally, but some of those things start to come back. It's like, this is what I believe a good person is, right? So I believe a good person, like we see people like, I believe a good person gets vaccinated, again, if you didn't, it's fine. But, or like, I believe a good person cares about their kids more than their dogs, or I believe a good person thinks that their dog should never sleep outside, or, like there are all these different things that we personally believe that can kind of come into our decision-making when we make purchases. And it's just very interesting. And I really challenge you to actually think about some of the most recent purchases that you've made, and why did you make them? And how did it make you feel? What was the brand that you bought from? Do you buy from them all the time? And some of the ones that you're really loyal to, why? Why are you loyal to them? Like, what does it say about you as a person if you buy from them? What do you think it says about you? And, again, this is all internal. You don't have to ask your husband, like, does it make me a good person if I buy from Anthropologie? Like, they're not going to know. You think about that, right? Like, if I buy from Anthropologie, like, I'm probably like very stylish and very cool and have a decent amount of expendable income, right? So I don't buy from them because none of those things are true for me. But it's just kind of an example. Another way, if you're starting to struggle, like, okay, so I'm not entirely sure how to put this into language, right? Like, I don't know, like maybe I know how they want to feel, but how does that come into play when I'm actually writing the copy? And the best thing that you can do is use your customers' words. If you've had interactions with people, if people have actually purchased from you before, and it's okay if they haven't, but if you can get to a place where you are talking either directly to your consumers, talking directly to your audience, or talking to somebody who may buy from you or who is kind of your target, your ideal person, then thinking about what are they saying that they need or they like, or how it makes them feel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, people will actually tell you, you have to make a point to listen. So, when I think about this course or this class, that was one thing I remember asking several times. Like, I ask this all the time, like, what's something you struggle with? Talking about my stuff all the time without feeling like I'm annoying everybody. Like, that literally is the set of words that was told to me by multiple people on multiple occasions. So, okay, we make that the title of the class. Huge response means ding, ding, ding. We're in the right place, because I'm actually starting to resonate with my audience and they're resonating with my message. All those things are kind of working together. And so I would, again, like, if somebody gives you any form of feedback, whether that's verbal or otherwise, write it down, write it somewhere, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, it doesn't matter. Even if they ask tons and tons of questions, maybe you get the same question all the time about a process, like, well, what is your packaging like, for instance, right? Like, do you use plastics in your packaging? Then, you can use that as a talking point and talk about why you use the packaging that you do. What's the purpose behind that? What you want that to do for, whether that's the environment or whether you want it to be very fancy so people feel like they're getting something really special, like using some of that, like, I made this special for you because I know that you are worth it. Those kinds of things are what are really, really helpful for other people to turn around and say, like, she gets me, or he gets me, they get me, right? this person, this business understands exactly what I need. Of course, we don't necessarily think that in our heads, but it comes off as a feeling to us, right? Like if somebody were to say like, you know, I made this packaging because I think that you're worth like good packaging, I would be like, oh, okay, cool. I think so too. You know, it's just that kind of that feedback that you get. So if you're not having conversations with your people about what they need, how they want to feel, what they think, if you're not getting feedback from them, this is a time to start doing that. Start talking to them, ask them questions, do it as a poll in your stories, do it as questions in your stories, ask them in the DMs, ask them directly, go back to people who've bought from you before, ask them questions, talk to them, just talk to them about their lives, you know, figure out what their lives are like. Sometimes that is a good indicator. You know, if somebody is at home, they feel trapped at home and they are maybe frustrated with their marriage, maybe their kids are driving them up a wall and they just need a break, and knitting is their break. So using that kind of language, knowing like, I know you're overwhelmed and I know that this pattern that I designed is going to put you in your own zone. It's going to create a bubble around you. And you are going to be so focused on it and so in love with it that you're going to forget that the rest of the world exists. By the way, if anybody makes that pattern, please let me know because that would be really great to have. So yeah, so there is that part of it. And then the last part is my favorite. Change the language that you use from I to you. Okay. Huge, 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 huge. I don't know how many times I look at a caption and I see like, I'm so excited because I did XYZ. I'm so excited because I made XYZ. Nobody cares that you're excited that you made something. Nobody cares. They want to know why you did it for them, right? I mean, like we don't actively think these things, right? I don't sit there and scroll and be like, oh my God, I can't believe they're so self-absorbed. You know, what I'm thinking is like, doesn't click. Like my brain does not fashion it as this is for me, right? But when they start saying like, hey, I heard you, let's talk about what you need, you know, and some, you're going to have to, unfortunately, these are very generic examples. So you're going to have to really work around and play with this to find a way that feels good for you and feels like the voice that you speak in and feels like the way that you talk to your customers in general. So it does take some playing to kind of figure it out. But I guarantee you, oh my gosh, I cannot even tell you, when I started doing this, it was the biggest game changer for me. I went from like making like okay money to okay, I'm making money now because people actually want what I have. And that is really affirming for me in a lot of ways, but it also affirms that, you know, I actually now know and very much understand what people need from me, and it helps me serve them better. So it's a win-win across the board. You get to serve them better. They get to feel better served. Nobody is at a loss here, right? So even if they hand you their money, nobody is at a loss here. They got exactly what they wanted and what they needed from you. So you don't have to feel like you're conniving in any way, because it's not the case. You are giving them value. They are giving you value. It just looks different. The value that they give you is in the exchange of money. The value you give them is in the sense of something either tangible or intangible. Doesn't really matter, but it's still a value exchange. Sorry, I'm getting a bit wordy here. I didn't expect kind of like, I get so impassioned in this stuff and then I can't shut up. And then let's get into step 3 here. So the step 3, again, not manifesting, change your frequency. And I mean this as exactly like it sounds, which is talk about it all the time. Talk about it a lot, talk about it in different ways, talk about it in different places. You know, the elusive they, I don't know who they is, but in general, studies have shown in the past that it takes 7 touches for somebody to actually go from discovering you to buying from you. And now that we have, the ever so lovely internet, which completely has changed the way that we will have any form of attention, right? Like it's completely affected our attention spans. And because of that, now it takes 9 touches. That means that one person is going to have to hear you say the same thing 9 times, or roughly the same thing, hear about your thing, your product or your service 9 times before they're like, okay, that's cool, I'll buy it. So this is assuming that somebody goes from like not knowing you whatsoever to knowing you very well. within 9 touches. But, if you have a very warm audience who is like, I love everything you put out and I'm going to buy everything you make and I'm going to knit everything that you design, that's a little bit different. They might not care. They might just be like, oh, I heard it once, it's mine, right? And that's lovely. We'd all like to get there all the time, but that's just not how the world works. So since we assume that not everybody sees everything that we do or post, so there are multiple different things at play here, right? So number one, we've got algorithms, which we love, right? Algorithms are our favorite. We love algorithms so much. So we have the Instagram algorithm, which everybody bitches about, pardon my French, but everybody does. And I get it. I feel you. I do too. But we know for a fact that they don't show everybody everything. We know that because we'll have people that we've been expecting to see things from and it never shows up. And then we have to go hunt them down and they posted about it 3 days ago, but for some reason, Instagram never bothered to tell us. It's like, hello, I've been waiting for this. And it's the same thing on the other end. Even like, think about your stories, right? Let's say you post in the stories, less than 10% of your followers are actually going to see your stories. And even then, maybe they just like quick click through, or maybe the dog came up and grabbed their shoe and they had to turn it off, or grab their knitting, God forbid. And they had to like quick get out of the phone and they didn't get a chance to actually read what you wrote or hear what you said. Like, you have to understand that people are distracted. They're pulled in different directions. We've got, we compete on an average basis all the time with ads, with sponsored posts, things like that. And I'm telling you what, targeted ads work. They work. There is a reason we get targeted them. How many times have you like said one thing around your phone? Like, give me an aerial tripod. Like, give me a tripod to do flat lays. And all I have to do is say it 3 times. And tomorrow, I guarantee you, I will have 6 different options for tripods that take pictures, like, downwards. And, so when we see something like that, and we had spoken to our phone to specifically get that, I treat it like a magic lamp. It's like, okay, I need XYZ, and then it produces it, which is great. But that's going to grab my attention because I was literally looking for it. And then I may skip over somebody else's post as a result, like, oh, they found it. They found the thing that I needed. So, considering that and understanding that you may have to talk about it multiple times, which means that you've got something that you're going to launch, you have a shop update, whatever it is. It's not just one post. It's not one post on one day. It just can't be. It can't be. If you want it to be successful, you need to build up to it. You need to talk about it a lot. You need to talk about it in different places. We are busy. We are distracted. We are tired. We don't remember anything. And so we need that extra help. So if you can put it in your stories once a day, because those go away after 24 hours. And if somebody missed it during that 24 hours, that means they didn't see it. So you got to do it again. Like when I do countdown stickers, I do them twice. And the second time is 24 hours, within the 24 hours of the thing that's happening. And the first one's like a few days in advance. So when that one drops off, I throw up a new one and it still like gets utilized. Yeah, so that's the best thing to do. You can put it in your newsletter, put it somewhere on your website, make your TikTok. If you do TikTok, I feel so old when I even say it like that. TikTok, I have to like enunciate it. When you put things on Facebook, if you use Twitter, if you use, I don't know, Pinterest, whatever, like all of those things are going to utilize different algorithms, kind of with the exception of Pinterest. They don't really use them. So newsletters don't really use them either. But again, if somebody's getting an inpouring of emails and they're not somebody who closely monitors their inbox, they could miss it. So throw it up again, talk about it more than once, talk about it way more than once, way more than once. Okay. All right. Which then leads me to, so you are going to be selling across different platforms. Again, we just talked about Instagram, newsletter. I forgot I had the slides. Sorry, I could have talked about most of this. And then switching up the conversation. So talk about different elements of the same thing. You don't have to say, please buy my thing. Here's my link in bio. Please buy my thing. Here's my link in bio. Please buy my thing. Here's my link in bio. It can be like, this is what it was like to make it. This is what it was like I don't know. Again, these are all very generic. This is not great copy. Don't like quote me on any of this. This is my inspiration, or this is a funny story about when I was making it. Or, the second part of this is focusing on different pain points. So this is how I know you're going to feel when you have this. This is what I know it's going to solve for you. Or this is, the place that you're going to get to once you're done. You look at the before picture of them before they have your product. And what does that after picture look like? And how can you communicate that? Even if it's something that's yarn, right? Even if it's a knitting pattern, there is a before and there is an after. Even if it's a small after, a small shift, you have helped them start to make a shift, right? Everything is a transformation. Everything is a change. Everything we buy is something that's a little bit different. My dumb phone case is a shift. I went from buying plastic things to buying something that's compostable. And having bought something that was compostable, that shift became, look at how eco-conscious I'm becoming, it's a work in progress. And again, I don't recycle bottles, so don't judge me, but it's not my fault. But everything is a step in a certain direction that a person wants to go, whether that's just like, I want to be this kind of person and this is where I'm at now. Where do you fit along that line? Okay. So talking about your thing in different ways is the best way to do that. My favorite line is my favorite line. At the point that you start to feel annoying, it probably means you're not talking about it enough. I mean that. I genuinely mean that. And it's very, very, very hard because we actually will start to annoy ourselves. And I am with you. I am there with you because, usually like you have a flurry of people at the beginning of something when you start to talk about it. And then you have a flurry at the very, very end, but right in the middle, it kind of stagnates. And in the middle is where you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so obnoxious. I can't stand to even like listen to myself talk about this anymore, or I can't even bring myself to talk about it anymore, but you need to keep doing it. You need to keep doing it. It doesn't have to be the only thing you talk about, right? Like you can salt and pepper it with other different things, but you do have to be talking about it. Okay. And then lastly, like the biggest thing here is that nobody can buy from you if they don't know what you sell. Like if you're not saying, I sell this and I have it on sale right now, how on earth is anybody supposed to know that they can go on and buy it? I mean, that's the God honest truth here, is that you do have to actually say something. And it may seem obvious, but you would be surprised. You would be so surprised to see what I see sometimes when I'm working with somebody and it's like, okay, my launch didn't do very well. Okay, well, how much did you talk about it? Well, I posted about it on Instagram. How many times? Once. Okay, we need to have a conversation. It doesn't like mean you're doing anything like bad. It just means that we just have to meet our people where they're at, and where they're at is all over the place. They're all over the place and they're just not focused. So you meeting them where they're at is you doing them a service, right? You're not doing this for you. You are doing this for them because you believe in what you have and you know it benefits them in some way, even if it just makes them feel awesome, right? If that's the only thing it does, that is something. And that is really, really powerful. So don't sell yourself short and don't make it seem like you're manipulating anyone. You're not a scammer. You have something. And this something is important and it is real and it is like very valuable. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this, right? None of us would have our businesses if we thought that they were garbage. They're not. They're not. Your business is not garbage. It's important. So make sure that you communicate that importance so that those people understand it. I didn't write any of that down. I feel really good about it. It was very powerful, wasn't it? I know. Terrible joke. Anyway, but it's true. Okay. So now guess what? It's your turn to be successful. Like this is your moment. This is your time. This is the opportunity that you get to say, okay, you know what? Now I have it. Now I've got it. I'm going to go out and I'm going to sell it. I'm going to kill it in a good way. Kill it in a good way. Like I'm going to do a very good job. And you absolutely can. And I know that some of you are going to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to log off. I'm going to internalize all this and I've got it. Right. And that's great. But some of you I know too are going to need a little bit more help with it and are going to need some more support. So in that vein, I will say too, this is a great time to go ahead and answer or like stick in any questions that you have, and I'll get to them here at the end in just a few minutes. But I do want to talk to you about my Business Homeowners Association. So this is actually a membership that I have started and starting. It starts on November 1st. And the Business Homeowners Association is specifically a membership designed to get you to go from having to like figure everything out all by yourself and try to like hope to God that you got this right. And then you're going to be shifting to actually having a plan, having support, and having constant answers to your questions, like always having something and somebody in your corner. I do have several of you I know that are in this already. So if you guys have had positive experiences in there already, even though it hasn't technically started, we have a Slack group. We'll talk about that here in a second. But if I do have anybody in here who's already in the BHOA, I'd love to hear from you in the comments and what your experience has been so far. But essentially the membership itself, so it's designed to help you shift from the narrative from this isn't working to I can't believe this is working in a very good way, because it is entirely possible. It's so possible. It's just a matter, again, of shifting perspectives and focus and being able to have like just that backup support. But it also gives you a safe space to learn the fundamentals of marketing and selling, both. Okay, so they're, selling is a part of marketing, but they are technically a little bit separate there. But you'll know exactly how to speak to your people in a language that they understand. And then you will also receive like ongoing learning and accountability, so you're never left feeling alone. And then you will have a community that's going to uplift you and your business of other small business owners. Specifically, like the majority of us, of course, are in the fiber arts industry, but we do have people that are not. So if you are not, this is still for you. It's still for you. Just because there's a lot of us who like yarn doesn't mean that you have to. But they're going to get where you're coming from and they want to see you succeed. My God, do they want to see you succeed? It's amazing. But I mean, I designed this specifically because I did a huge amount of surveying from people and seeing exactly what people need. And the biggest thing I come back with is like, I feel like I'm doing this all by myself. I feel totally alone. I feel like I have no idea where to find this information. The marketing stuff that's out there has nothing to do with me because it doesn't understand the fiber arts industry specifically. I mean, that is kind of one of them. And like, I don't know how to focus. I don't know how to prioritize time management. I don't know how to do this in a way that's sustainable. I don't know how to do this in a way where I still like leave time for my family, all of that stuff. This is the place to get that all resolved, essentially. I mean, obviously we're not a one-stop shop. It's going to be a lot of progress and a lot of work over time, but it gives you that ability to do it over time. It's not just me and you sitting down for an hour and having a conversation, then all of a sudden you're ready to go. It's not me and you even working for 3 months and being like, hey, I can now be on my own completely. Sometimes you need more than that. A lot of times, most of us need more than that. I need more than that. I can't always just do 3 months and then it's like throwing you to the wolves. See ya, have a great time. Sometimes it's great, but it's not ideal, right? It's not ideal to just have that. So in case you're wondering, why on earth are we talking about houses? I hate homeowners associations. They represent the worst of the worst of the worst of Americans. You're right, they do. But this is different, right? So I love to use the metaphor is that your business should feel like home, right? Because what do we feel like when we're home? The metaphorical feeling of home, right? Like I don't mean like this is your actual house. Like it's how you feel in your legitimate home. But like feeling like home is like feeling like yourself, feeling completely comfortable. This is what people say about their romantic partners. Like, I feel like home when I'm with you, right? Like, what does that mean? That means like, I can be myself. I'm who I am completely. You can be like that in your business. You can be exactly who you are, do things the way that you want to do them. And it is like, it will be successful still. Even if you're an introvert, even if you feel like you're not great with people, even if you feel socially awkward, it doesn't matter. All of those things you can find your strengths and play to those and become a successful business. I've seen it done. And honestly, like there's a lot of other home metaphors that I really, really love. There's all about, when I talk about like what's better, buying or renting, and we know that buying your own home is usually better than renting because you have some sort of like an asset now and it's yours and you can do whatever you want with it. And I say like the same thing in like online spaces, having your own website and your own newsletter, those are yours. Instagram is not yours. Facebook is not yours. You're subject to their rules. So having those is fine, but making sure that your home base is in those places that you particularly own is super, super important. So we use the house metaphor in a lot of different ways. And that's where the Homeowners Association comes in, is that we are a community of people who have businesses that are home to us, right? Like that we have business houses is what I like to refer to it as. So a couple of things that kind of that are included in this is you will get access to my signature marketing course, which is called Homecoming, which allows you to learn to market yourself, sustainable, value-led way, completely self-paced. You can you can binge it all in one sitting. You can take your time and learn it all over multiple months. It's got a huge workbook to go with it. And then it's going to have audio as well. So if you really are somebody who likes to learn better via audio, that will be there for you. And you don't have to just like read tons and tons and tons of text. We do get three live calls every month starting in November. You'll have access to a calendar. You can register for all of these. We'll have an office hour where you can submit any marketing questions that you have. And then I will answer them, obviously, until we're done, until we've gotten all the questions answered. And these roughly will be around like an hour each. But then we'll also have a mindset coaching call, which is really, really cool. We ran with these through my beta program of Homecoming, and they were really powerful and everybody really loved them, where basically you submit a question ahead of time or an issue. So let's say like I'm having a hard time comparing myself with other people. Then you hop on the call with me. Everybody can see, right? But you hop on the call with me and we're going to talk through it. We're going to work through it in the way that I coach, right? Because coaching is really important to me. It's not just, I don't want to just be here like guru. I'm not necessarily a guru. I just obsess over this stuff, right? Where you guys don't always have time to obsess over it. It's totally cool. It's my job. I love to obsess. I will obsess. But some of that mindset stuff is some of the engagement that I love to have on my one-to-ones, right? Where we actually get in really deep. You get to offer reflection and feedback. I get to offer reflection and feedback. It is a partnership of working through issues so that we know exactly what we need to do to get you to the next stage. Every other month, we're going to have a focused workshop. So for instance, November's is going to be around launching. We're going to have a big workshop around launching. These are going to be relatively hands-on as much as we can get them to be. And then in the off month, it gives us the opportunity to work on that and to check in with each other and say, hey, have you guys been practicing this? What have you learned so far as you've been working through the material from the workshop? And we'll do a co-working hour. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to what we learned in the workshop the previous month, but the co-working hour, I don't know if anybody's ever been on one, you basically just all get on a call together and you hit mute and you just work on your stuff together. It's just a way to be accountable but actually be present with each other. And sometimes people chat a little bit, but for the most part, it's just a way to be focused together. You'll also get access to new courses as they are released. Content planning, I have one, but I'm going to revamp it. Instagram, I technically have one as well, but they've been making a god-awful amount of changes the last couple of weeks. So I've realized that I need to completely decimate it and start over. So that's awesome. But we'll have that once some of their pieces start to land a little bit more. And then, of course, you'll have access to the best and most engaged Slack group ever. And I'm not even exaggerating about that. I don't think I've ever been in a group that is more engaged than this one. Right now, my stats are telling me that we average about 1,000 back and forth conversations a week. It is crazy. But it's really nice because it is a place that everybody seems to really trust each other. and it gives people a safe space to be transparent. The designers have already been like, this is how much I make with this magazine. This is what I got paid by this magazine. This is how much I made from working from this collaboration. And it gives everybody else a place to start working from for themselves. Understand, am I being underpaid, or should I be asking for more? And it gives them kind of that support and that encouragement to do that. We also do weekly check-ins on the Slack group. So you tell us what went well or what was awful, and we can either celebrate with you or commiserate with you. Doesn't really matter. We just want to be there for each other. And it genuinely, everybody wants to be there for each other. So it would be amazing to have you guys come join us. And if you're wondering about price, here we go. So we are starting out this until the end of the year, but this specific round is only going to be open until November 1st, and we're shutting the doors. But we're going to go in at $31 a month. If you want to get 2 months free, you can go in at $310. But this basically encompasses everything. It's all the calls, all the content, continuing ongoing education, continuing ongoing support. It's just something you're never going to have to worry about, like, okay, now where do I go? You're going to have a place to go next. You're going to have a next focus step just by being part of this membership. If you want to kind of put it into context, it's a little bit different, but you know, if you were to do one-on-one coaching for just an hour, it's $150 with me. If you wanted to do it over 3 months, it's $855. I mean, you think about even what you pay for $31 a month, it's only $372, which feels like a big number, but like in comparison to trying to do like very focused coaching, it's much, much, much more accessible. And that was something that I realized, is that for some reason, the fiber arts industry is massively underpaid. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but massively underpaid. And so not everybody gets to be able to afford an $855 coaching package. You know, it can't just be for like, you know, the people who have wealth for whatever reason, or who have, you know, access to expendable income that is that much. Because that really is not everybody. And, you know, self-included here, but this is a way to kind of get a piece of that without having to spend that much, and without having to have it dip into so much of your business, because it shouldn't. But if you do end up needing one-on-one help, you can get 15% off a one-on-one session or 20% off of a package. And I've had people take advantage of that already. So it is great to have it in conjunction with it. They work really, really well together. Some of the testimonials that I've gotten so far. So Emily, who's here with us tonight, if she's still here, she just, this is actually, I literally copied and pasted this from one of the forums, is that she, sometimes somebody will ask for feedback, and everybody will start chiming in to give that feedback, and it will all log in and find out, oh, you have 94 unread messages. It's like, holy cow. All right, we've got some reading to do. And, you know, being able to ask questions that you didn't think you would ever be able to talk about because you think that they would be trade secrets. Like, this is the place to do that. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I have to say this, is that something that I've realized a lot, like recently, and that I want to talk about more in the coming weeks, is that, you know, the way that this industry functions is with each other. None of us work together alone. None of us. We all need each other to make this work. We all need each other to make our businesses work, because we are all different facets of the same industry. You know, again, even if you're not fiber arts, like, it still is relatively applicable. But, you know, being able to have a group where we are actually working together and supporting each other and uplifting each other. So many collaborations have already started. So many people are buying from each other in that group. It's really amazing to see. And I can say that, like, very, very sincerely, knowing that I've literally done nothing to do that. Literally, I threw up a Slack group and everybody else has done all the work. Now Elizabeth Margaret here. So she's a knitwear designer. She actually took my homecoming course, did the beta version of it. So she was motivated, feeling lost is what to do, feeling more organized. And I love this. Like, when she's unsure of what to work on, she goes back to the course materials. And that's something that you can do time and time again. Let's say you do the whole course, and then 2 months later, you're thinking, okay, now I'm really just, I don't really know what to do. So go back and do the course again. There's always, I'll be updating it all the time as well, but there's always going to be something to go back and revisit and to look at a different way. And of course, the Slack group is like amazing for that as well. But yeah, comfortable looking for yarn support and other collaborations, especially because most of them are happening within the Homeowners Association. Feeling confident in her brand identity and ability to create a substantial career, which is amazing for a knitwear designer. Yes, yes. You gals and guys need to be paid a whole lot more. You hear me harp on that a whole lot. And then this is some feedback that I got just in a message from Howard, who has been in the group, and he and I have worked one-on-one as well, but he was really amazed by the Slack group. And I love this too. Like, there may still be room in Slack for me, a 76-year-old male jeweler who loves color and shawl pins as much as a yarn dyer loves their yarn colors. And I just think that's amazing. It just goes to show that, number one, age doesn't matter. And we all have something that we bring to the table, even if we feel like we don't. And everybody there is welcoming and ready to receive it. And, if it's something that you get in the Slack group and you're feeling a little uncomfortable, reach out to me and we'll make it work. We'll find a way to bring you in a way that makes you feel included. Because that's the thing, is like, this is inclusive. And I am dead set on making sure that that is the case. Okay, so bonuses for enrolling in this round. You get a 30-minute virtual coffee with me, which means that we can get to know each other if we don't already. If we do know each other, we can kind of jump into your challenges. But either way, like, you're going to get some actionable things to walk away with. And let's be realistic. I'm not going to be able to do this forever. The virtual coffees, just because there's only so much time in a day. But for this round specifically, I really want to be able to include those for you guys. I love doing virtual coffees. They are so much fun. And I feel so much better connected to everybody who's in there because I've actually seen them face to face, and we've talked to face to face, and I know their problems and I know where I can lead them, and I know what other resources I can provide. So if you want to get on this round, you get those coffees. And then right now, the bonus that I've got is that I actually put in Unit 1 of the Homecoming course. Even though it doesn't start till November 1st, you at least can get Unit 1 now and start working on it. And then everything else will lead or follow, not lead, that leads, everything else follows. But yeah, I'm so excited about it. I know that doesn't matter, like what my excitement is in it. It doesn't matter to you guys necessarily, but I've seen changes. I've seen people like go from, I don't know what I'm doing, to, oh my God, I have a plan and it's working. And it's just so nice. It's so nice because this industry needs so much support. You guys need so much support. And there aren't that many people. There are some of us, right? There are some of us who are coaches who are out there trying to help, but this is the place, right? Like I am the place for you. I really, truly believe that. And I feel so strongly about it. You guys probably know that from all the ranting you've heard me do in the past, but like, I feel so strongly about this, about making sure that designers are getting paid what they deserve, that yarn dyers are getting acknowledged when they're in collaborations, that tech editors are being like noticed. You guys hide for some reason, and we'd love to see know more about you so that we can hire you, right? And then that shepherds have a place where they can actually put stuff online. I think a lot of times with shepherds, they just assume like, oh, the only selling I'm going to be doing is at the auction house, or if I go to a farmer's market. It's like, no, there's a place for you online. People actually care about you and your sheep. So please come show up, because you're important to us all. So this is where I want you guys to be able to do that, to create a community, to lift each other up, and to have amazing businesses, basically. So with that having been said, I did a really bad job. Well, here's the link for it. If you want to go ahead and get signed up for it, I'll send out a link as well in the replay email, which I'll have the replay. Again, I'll try to get that tonight. But I would also love to know, and you are more than welcome to unmute yourself. I would love to know any questions that you have. Like, it does, on anything that we talked about tonight? Seriously, nobody has any questions. Everybody has every question they ever needed to know has been answered in their lives.
I kind of have a question. So I'm a tech editor, so I'm kind of curious, like when you're kind of what you're selling is like a service rather than a product, does the same advice still kind of apply?
Okay, sorry. I have this stupid speaker that turns off after a certain amount of time. So it turned off. I heard part of it. So basically is the question is that if this advice applies even if you have a service and not a product.
Right.
Yes. The answer is yes. Absolutely. Like definitely. Obviously, some things are going to look different, right? So if you are going to have, for instance, like behind the scenes photos are going to be different for somebody who runs like a service-based business rather than a product-based business. But the same thing, it's all the same stuff, right? You still need that transformation. You still need to show this is what it's like before the service, this is what it's like after the service. And usually services can do a little bit more sometimes than products can in that, because transformations can look a lot more dramatic, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, absolutely. And services need a lot of support themselves because we don't have like a tangible thing to just be showing like pictures of our things, right? It's just us. It's just us. We are the service. We are the brand. We are everything. So it's a matter of like figuring out how do you do that without pictures of like product, which, you know, not everything is about photos, but in the context of like Instagram, yes, it is. But yes. Okay. So, okay. If I could offer very specific services like helping build my newsletter. So like, do you mean offering services in the sense like offering like a workshop on that? Handholding, okay. Yes, so I mean, like we definitely, that's something that can always be done in a one-to-one session. Absolutely. I know in the homecoming course, that's the standalone, that's in the membership all the time. There's a lot around newsletters. So, you know, we talk about lead magnets and like, what are some ways in which you can communicate the value of your newsletter, and where can you talk about your newsletter, and you know, what are the kind of things you actually talk about in the newsletter, because that varies for everybody. And talking and like getting people on it is different for everybody as well. But yes, the homecoming course has that in it. Otherwise, then you could definitely book, and we could go into some specifics for your business one-on-one also. All right. Everybody else has had all their questions answered.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
So you talked about changing the frequency and talking about your products all the time. So for, you know, in the knit design world, most people, when they talk a lot about their design, it's because it's a new design. Mm-hmm. It's something that just came out. And then a lot of the talk is about sales specifically and discounts, which we've already talked about is like not great. We're trying not to train our people to wait for the discounts and stuff. So I guess like the hardest part of all of this for me is to then talk about existing patterns that are full price and are not new. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you go about talking about the things that like aren't new and exciting, but they are for sale. Like,
yeah,
please buy them from me at any time. I'm not going to give you a discount on them. I don't understand that side of the marketing.
yeah. So as far as like not giving a discount, just don't talk about a discount. That's easy. Like just, oh, here's this thing, here it is. But I did see Victoria's Wool over the summer. She did something really smart, and she had a featured pattern for the month, even though she was working on something completely new and that was coming up in her feed. She did a featured pattern that she had already had in existence. And so she did a whole newsletter around it. She did a series on Instagram around it. Basically it was a shawl pattern. She showed how to style it, that kind of stuff, like bringing it back into the fold as almost kind of like you're re-releasing it, but there's just no talk of a discount. It's like, hey, this was something that I released this long ago, but it is amazing because of XYZ. And you may at that point even have more social proof pictures, basically people who have knit it over time versus, when you're at the very beginning of releasing your pattern, you only have what your testers have knit. But now you've got a bigger pool of photos to choose from that people haven't seen yet. So I think that I love that idea so much, but I think that too, you can just randomly stick things in and be like, oh, remember this? This is one of my favorite patterns. Da, 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 da. Like you can find other ways to just kind of like stick it in every once in a while as, this is also a pattern that I have made at some point in my life.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Are there any others before we wind down for the evening or morning, depending on where you're at? Okay, I'm taking that as a no. So again, thank you so much for coming. Number one, very, very happy to have you all here, but please do also, please reach out and sign up for the Homeowners Association. I really don't think you're going to regret it. I know you won't regret it, and I will love to have you in there, and I will love to get to know you. And Jaya, I'll reach out to you because I have all your stuff. So, but yes, you can always contact me via Instagram. You can contact me via email. You can contact me via my website. I'm always up for conversation with all of you. So have a lovely rest of your day, however much you have of it left, and we'll talk soon.